Thank you for joining us for the first College Readiness webinar, co-sponsored by the University of Wisconsin System and Department of Public Instruction. The purpose of these webinars is to provide information to high school teachers, counselors, principals, and others on enhancing college readiness among Wisconsin students. This first webinar is entitled Early Math Placement Tool, Preparing Students for College-Level Mathematics. And myself, Mark Schrader, as well as my colleague Sonia Sedevies, will be walking you through the EMPT PowerPoint this afternoon. And if anybody experiences any technical problems or has any questions that come up throughout the presentation, please feel free to enter those in the chat box. We have a moderator keeping an eye on that, and we will go over all of the questions that come in at the end of the presentation. The EMPT tool is sponsored by the University of Wisconsin System, the Wisconsin Technical Colleges, and the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction. And with that sponsorship, that means that this is a free program for all of the high schools in the state of Wisconsin. And the EMPT is intended to be a very flexible program for you as an instructor. We have two different versions, a paper and pencil version, as well as an online version. And then we have two forms. We have Form A and Form B. With the two different forms, they are constructed to the same blueprint, so students would be seeing similar items, but it wouldn't be the exact same question. And this has been a great resource. We've been seeing a lot of instructors that have been using the EMPT in a pre-post testing format. So a lot of them are using Form A at the beginning of the school year, and then they'll use Form B in the spring semester sometime, and it's a great resource to measure the growth of your students. The EMPT is really intended for you, the instructors, and for the students. For the students, it's kind of a twofold type program. We have the actual exam and the evaluation of the student's readiness, and then we have the online guide portion of the EMPT, which provides great resources for both instructors, counselors, students, and students can actually go to any UW system campus or the technical colleges, select any major, and see what math would be required to complete that major. The EMPT is just that. It's a flexible program. As you'll see, you can offer it in a variety of different ways. It can be done in the classroom, it can be done as a homework assignment, but the purpose is strictly for you and your students. The main goal here is really to get the students to take 4 years of high school mathematics and to take the correct courses. We want them to be at a level that is comfortable but still challenging and is going to keep them on the right track for where they see themselves going in the future. So after that brief overview, now we're going to take you a little bit through the EMPT program, and you'll actually be able to see kind of screenshot by screenshot how everything will work. So this will act as a great guide for you, and we will have this PowerPoint available after the webinar, as well as the recorded version of the webinar for you to revisit if you have any questions. So as you can see here, this is our main homepage for the EMPT program. And this is where you would go for any of your information, the resources, registering, logging in, and for your students to access the exam. So starting off, if you're a new instructor that has not used the EMPT before, you'd come to our homepage and you would go to the register link at the top of the web page there. And to get started, we will need your first and last name, and also your email address. And this should be your school email address. If you have a .k12.wi.us email address, you can go in and log in right away. Everything will be very streamlined and pretty easy for you to get access and get going with the program. If you do not have a .k12.wi.us email address, that's perfectly fine. You can contact us. We will have our email address up at the end of the presentation, and any questions can be directed towards that email address. They come directly to me, and we just go in and pre-approve your new email domain. We understand a lot of schools are switching over to .coms or .org email addresses, so that is not a problem. You still have all of the same options that you can use in the EMPT, and it will still be a free program for you. Finally, you will need to enter your high school ACT code, and there's a little link to the right of that field where it says View School Codes, and it will be important to remember your ACT code because the students will need that information when they go and try to log into the classroom that you create so they can take their exam. So after we get kind of the registration process going a little bit, and you register, we start a process where we create a net ID for you to log in and use the program. And after you receive your net ID, again, you can go to our home page into the login link on the top of the screen, and you will see from here that there will be a login with net ID in blue. And you can go ahead and click on that, and you will finally be able to log into the EMPT. If you ever forget your net ID, again, please feel free to email us. As far as the password goes, there is a forgot your password link right below the password field that will help you reset that. And these credentials do not reset from year to year. Your classrooms will reset, and you will have to add new classrooms every year, but your login credentials will remain the same. And again, if you don't remember those from one year to the next, that's not a problem at all. We can definitely get you set up there. Next, we'll walk you through registering a class with the EMPT. And first of all, you'll want to see that all of our kind of helpful links are on the left side of this page. So first, we'll start with the Add or Edit Classrooms link. And you will be taken here, and this is where you get to pre-select how you would like to have the EMPT administered. So first, you would have to enter your class period. Then you select the course description that best fits your class. This is not an all-encompassing list, so please feel free to kind of pick the description that fits the course that you're selecting here the best. After you select the course description, you'll be able to choose if you want the students to take the online version of the test or the paper and pencil version. If you do elect to take the paper and pencil version, please notice that again on the left side of the screen in the margin there, we have print test forms. And we have PDF copies of both forms of the exam available. And please feel free to print those off and distribute them as necessary to your students. And finally, you will select at the bottom of the screen here which test form you will be given. Once you add your classroom, you'll see that all the information will come up to your View Classroom Summary, and you're going to have information here that's important for your students to access the exam. And we're going to come back to this in just a second, and I will show you what you will need there. But for the time being, once you do have your classroom added, your students will be able to access the exam. And if you see the instructions for students, you can click on that link, and this will have the actual link for the students to enter their responses. And being that we do provide immediate feedback with the EMPT, if the student takes a paper and pencil version of the test, they will go in and just kind of see an answer template, whereas students that take the online version of the test will see the full exam, all of the items. Regardless, the students will need to enter their answers in here to receive their feedback and to have the full access to their set of resources. So once the student goes to their link to begin their exam, you will see here that first of all they need to enter the ACT code, as I brought up a little bit earlier when a teacher is registering for the EMPT. They will need the teacher's last name, their class period, and finally they will need the access code that really differentiates the students into what course or what classroom that you may have set up for them. And again, the access code is found under the classroom summary on the far right side. So after the student has kind of registered and they're ready to enter your class and begin the exam, they will enter their identifying information, and they will be ready to start the EMPT. Here is actually the online version of the test, and as you will see, we have 40 questions of the EMPT, and the students will have 45 minutes to answer these questions. This acts as a half test of the actual math placement test, and the EMPT, and we'll discuss this a little further, can really be used amongst a wide array of students. We've seen anywhere from advanced sophomores to seniors using the program, but for the half test purposes, this really kind of works the best for the seniors. It gives them an opportunity to practice their pacing, get a little more familiar with what items they might see when they are ready to take the actual math placement test. Next, we will go through the paper and pencil version. And again, the first two entry screens will be identical between paper and pencil and the online version of the test. So again, your students will need the ACT code and the access code that's available under your classroom summary. They will enter their identifying information. And here is the template for the paper and pencil version. So again, we really want to stress that this is a program that is meant for you as an instructor and for your students. It's an eye-opening tool, and it really kind of helps them get a little perspective of the UW system and the Wisconsin Technical Colleges and what the expectations for this level of math is. So as you'll see, as a student finishes going through, they'll finish their exam, and then they'll be brought to this page where they can click Link, and this will provide the students with their immediate student feedback. As you'll see with the student feedback, each student will get an EMPT placement level, and then they receive subscores in Math Basics, Algebra, and Trigonometry. These three subscores are going to be the same, again, as what is on the math placement test, and these are kind of the skills at this point in time that these scores are accumulating from. A little bit further down on the student feedback, you can see a little better description of each EMPT level and how that matches up with the skills that are kind of expected for that level. And finally, kind of the neatest part of the program is the link that's at the bottom of the student feedback, and this will take them to the math requirements by major page. We will be going over this page in a little bit more detail, but it's just nice to point out that it is available for the students to access here from their student feedback. Finally, we'll get into the teacher feedback a little bit and see what kind of resources and tools are available to you after your students have completed their exams. So once you log into the EMPT, please go to the Viewer Print Reports link, and you'll see the different kind of features that we have available for you here. First off, we have the View Scores and Placement, and you can do that by classroom, which will show you one class period or one class, and it will list all of your students. It will show their scores in Math Basics, Algebra, Trigonometry, and also give their overall EMPT placement level. From this page, you are able to save this information to an Excel spreadsheet, or you're also available to click on the Display Placement Chart link at the bottom, which will give you a histogram just to give you a little better visual of how your students are performing on the EMPT. Also with scores and placement, you can do this by course type. So for instance, say you have an Algebra 1 course that you teach period 1, and then period 4 you might have another Algebra 1 course. Well, this will combine both of those classes together, so you see all of your Algebra 1 students together. And again, it's the same information on the report. The Math Basics ELG, and trig, as well as the placement score. And again, you can save these to an Excel spreadsheet or else display the histogram. Next, we'll take a look at the item analysis that's available to you for using the EMPT. And again, this can be done both by classroom or by course type. And you will see a breakdown of each item on the version of the test that you use. The percent correct column here that's highlighted shows your students, the percentage of your students that got the item correct in their response. And just to the right of that, you will see that this says UW freshman percent correct. And all of these items at one time were actually live items on the math placement test. They have since been retired. They're disclosed. There are no security issues anymore with these items. But when they were live, you can see the UW system freshmen, how they scored on each item, and kind of compare that to your students to gauge a little bit what the expectations are and really see how your students are performing and what the strengths and weaknesses are on certain items and objectives on the EMPT. Next, I will turn things over to my colleague Sonia Sedeby, and she will walk you through some of our findings in our annual report.
So I always say that I get to talk about the fun stuff. I get to talk about some of the research that we have done on the early math placement tool and some of the cool things that we've been finding. So what you see here is you see a breakdown of the 9 placement levels, levels 1 through 9. In general, a level 1 or 2 corresponds to a developmental level placement on most of the UW campuses, and a placement level of 9 would correspond to a student placing into calculus on any of the UW campuses. So what we see here, if we compare the percent of students who participated in the EMPT to those who did not participate in the EMPT program, we see that we have more students who did not participate in the EMPT placing into those 2 remedial levels. So 6.2% place at a level 1 or the lowest level, and 8.1 are placing into level 2. In comparison to the students who did participate in the program, where only 2.7% and 3.9% are placing at those levels. And if we look way down at the bottom, then we can see that we do have more students, about 28%, who participated in the EMPT who go on to earn a calculus placement, with about 23% who did not participate in the EMPT going on to a calculus placement. And what we really see, we see these numbers holding pretty steady from year to year. We brought the early math placement tool program back in 2008, and when every year that we do the program evaluation, we see that we're cutting remedial rates for students who participated in the early math placement tool by about 50% when compared to the students who did not participate. And another thing that I want to show you here is what this is on the left-hand side is folks who, after they take their actual math placement test, we converted their math placement test to the 9 levels, the 1 through 9, and that's what you see in the column. And then across the top in the row is what their EMPT level was. So these are students who took both the EMPT and took that as juniors, and then how they scored when they came and took their actual math placement test. So what we see on the diagonal in the bold type are the students who had the same placement level. So they placed the same as a junior when they took the early math placement tool, and then when they came and they matriculated and took their placement test, they were scoring at the same level. So what I'm really interested here is I'm interested in all the numbers that are falling below that diagonal. So the students who showed gains in their placement levels. So looking at somebody who scored at a level 2, and then the number of students who actually went on to score at a higher placement level would fall on that lower diagonal of this chart here. And so we see that there's quite a few students who are improving their placement levels, but we do see some numbers on the other side too. We do see students who are actually, when they come and they take their actual math placement test, they're earning a lower placement score than what they did when they were in high school, when they took the EMPT. And the one thing that we don't know here, we don't actually know if they went on to take a math class during their senior year. I would suspect that some of the students where we're seeing placement levels decreasing from high school to college, hopefully maybe those are some of those students that are opting not to take math their senior year. Maybe they're not enrolling in a course that is in the correct trajectory for them.
Thanks, Sonia. Next, we'll kind of get into a little bit more of the resources that are available to you as an instructor. And one of the nice features here is the student feedback letters that they receive immediately after finishing the EMPT are also available to you as an instructor. First of all, we've seen a lot of instructors that have wanted these letters for parent-teacher conferences. It's nice to have this available for the parents. We know that sometimes everything the students get at school doesn't always make it home, but here you can have this information available and you can walk through the process with them and show them how their sons or daughters are kind of stacking up and doing with college level expectations. And finally, we'll get to kind of our best resource, and that's what has come up a few times here in the presentation, and that's the math requirements by major. On our EMPT homepage, you can go to the resources link and select the math requirements by major. And here's the list of all of the UW system campuses as well as the Wisconsin Technical College system. So say you have a student that wants to go to UW Platteville and they say that they want to be a veterinarian and they don't think that they need any math to be a veterinarian. So you can actually go through and show them what math course would correspond with their current EMPT level, and you can also show them every major that's available at UW Platteville and the required math that is needed to complete that degree. So you could actually go to any campus and tell that student that if you want to be a veterinarian, you will actually need X, Y, and Z to complete that degree, and it's a great tool in helping students understand and realize what the expectations are, and an eye-opening process to get them on the right path to A, take the 4 years of mathematics in high school, and to take the correct math that will help them get to where their career goals are. Next, we'll just give you a little bit of an overview of the numbers that we've had with the EMPT over the last few years. The 2014-2015 school year was actually our best year to date with over 12,000 students. And this year again, we are pretty much on an identical pace of where we were at last year. So as the discussions about developmental education get going, we're seeing that this is being a program that's getting a little more usage and a little more attention. It's a great resource for, again, both the instructors and the students to kind of measure up the college math readiness and to prepare for their future. As you can see here, here's a little chart on EMPT users by grade level. So we have 3% as unknown, 15%, which we're seeing more of the advanced sophomores in that area. And then our juniors are our main group because this is where we want to convince them to take that 4th year of math and to take the appropriate math, especially if they're college bound. And we also have a large chunk of seniors that take the EMPT, again, in some form as a practice test. It's not going to do much to help them decide a 4th year math class to take their senior year, of course, but it is still an excellent tool and can help them take the proper steps, any bridge courses or anything that they may need to get their EMPT level where they want to be in comparison to any future college plans that they may have. With that, thank you for joining us in our EMPT webinar today. As you can see, here is the email address that you can contact me at. We also have our website there, and with that, we do have a few questions that came in, so we'll kind of cover those here quick, if you would please stay with us. And our first question is, if our email does not end in .k12.wi.us, who do we email? And you can email that directly to me at the empt@exams.wisc.edu email address. And you should get a response within 24 hours when emailing that address. Will a webinar be emailed to participants? If not, can it be found online? We will email out the PowerPoint on a person-to-person basis if they contact our email address. However, these materials will be found online as well as the other webinars that will be taking place through UW system. Who do we contact to have corrections made to the testing.wisc.edu and consequences to the schools? And that can actually come to me as well. Usually what we do is every other year we'll kind of flip-flop with our math placement test committee that creates the math placement test. And that committee consists of faculty members from all of the UW system campuses. And we ask them usually every other year to update our list to make sure that the majors and the math requirements are up to date, so you are getting current information with that. I see we have, is there a charge for the testing? And again, for high schools that are using the program in the state of Wisconsin, you can use this at no cost. This is completely free. And let's see. It looks like we have a couple of questions for Sonia here.
So the first question is, what is the statistical significance of the growth? The growth that I showed, and actually any of the results that I showed, are statistically significant. So we are seeing some pretty good impacts with this program. And then very similar, how significant is the growth for the students who took the EMPT? I would really encourage folks to go to the EMPT website that Mark has up here, and under the resources tab there also are links to all of our program evaluations, so you can actually see the magnitude of some of the growth, and there's a lot more things that we looked at in the program evaluation that we did not show in this PowerPoint here. So breaking it down, the growth based on the curriculum that teachers indicated. So some of that information is there. So those program evaluations really give you a lot more detailed information, and they're out there for public use. I really encourage you to go and take a look at them, and you can see some of the other findings that have been coming up over the years.
All right. And it looks like that does it for the questions that we have here. But thank you very much for tuning in to our EMPT webinar. And again, if anybody has questions, please feel free to email the empt@exams.wisc.edu, and we will be happy to discuss any questions or best practices or anything that may come to mind for you that you would like a little more information on. Please feel free to contact us. Thank you.